This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Dan and Amy, a couple of housekeeping items. We didn't have a lot of time at the end of the last hour, but if you want to see the videos between our sales guy, Chad Wickert, here at AM 560, and his 16-year-old son with autism, go to, on YouTube, it's just like 16-year-old with autism has conversations with dad.
Or just Google Chad Wickert, and it pops up right to all the videos. And he's made 17 different videos. And they're really, I mean, I've been sucked in. I've been watching them all morning. You're doing a great show, Dan, but I've been watching these videos because they're fascinating to me.
Yeah, it just shows some of the recommendations that medical professionals have in terms of helping autistic children communicate, like imitating them. And so he holds up the phone, and it's him and his son both talking, and so they can see each other. And so he makes facial expressions like his son does, and it just kind of lights him up and helps him to communicate. And then they go through spelling tests and multiplication tables and talking about his son wanting to go to his friend's house to play Nerf gun with him. And
right. And
stuff.
Then, they go to the zoo, they go to Lego store, and he just talks about, the sound, and there's so many distractions that he feels more comfortable at a bookstore.
So that's, so check that out. These videos, hundreds of thousands of views now. It's pretty cool. And then secondly, there's Twitter. In the Twitterverse, you have an allegation against Connecticut Democrat Senator Richard Blumenthal by someone alleging to have been an intern for him in his law office 40 years ago, who is saying that he sexually assaulted her repeatedly. And then you have
his office is saying that that's a Twitter bot. Excuse me.
And then you have the person whose account that purports to be saying, someone took my picture and created a fake account. Don't believe it. It's fake. Yeah. And then you have people saying that person saying that it's fake is actually the fake account. I mean,
my head's spinning.
Well, right. My point is to say, in this age of accusation, somebody firing something off on Twitter or Facebook with the ability to create fake profiles and so forth, restraint before accusation a little bit, or restraint at least before belief, particularly if it's not a human being coming forward and speaking to the issue. So as this Blumenthal story develops, of course, we'll follow it, but I don't know that it's much of a story until there's some corroboration for this kind of one-off tweet. All right, switching gears, I want to talk about the implications for Illinois home values. Do you care about the value of your home in Illinois?
I do.
A lot of people don't seem to. We pay the highest property taxes in the nation, confiscatory. You're talking about the national average being about 0.9% property taxes as a percentage of home value. As we've talked about for months and months on end, my newspapers have done regional analyses of what's happening, county by county, region by region, in suburban Cook and the Collars, as well as the city of Chicago. I mean, home values are taking a hammering in this state. You cannot get a return on investment on your home because you can't keep pace with the negative multiplier of property taxes that are 3, 4, 5, 6% of your home value. You just can't do it. So you're going to pay for your home over the course of a 30-year fixed 1 to 2.5 to 3 times just in property taxes, depending on where you live. And, of course, what's being proposed at the federal level, the Republican plan, tax reform plan, would cap property tax deductions at $10,000. Well, Mark Glennon over at wirepoints.com, friend of the show, did a little bit of analysis on this and also looked at county by county the percentage of homeowners who were above that current cutoff of a $10,000 annual property tax bill. So the kind of tax exposure they're going to have by not being able to deduct over $10,000, and what that will do in terms of continuing that negative impact on home values, destroying your home equity. For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by Mark Glennon, founder of wirepoints.com, and his piece is Pending Federal Tax Changes Would Lower Illinois Home Values and Deepen Property Tax Rage. Mark, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan, Amy.
So kind of as I said in the setup, you're talking about what's proposed and what's pending in the Senate in terms of the Republican plan for tax reform and those cutoffs at the cutoff at $10,000, that this will have a very deleterious effect on home values in Illinois. Elaborate on your argument a bit, if you would.
Sure, and it's really the unintended consequence of the standard deduction that's in this bill that's being overlooked. People are looking at the sort of the bullet points and the headlines and the good parts of the bill, but you piece them all together and you get a real whammy here. The bill would double the standard deduction from $12,000 currently for a married couple to $24,000. Well, the bill takes away, the Senate bill would entirely eliminate the deduction for property taxes, and the House bill would cap that at $10,000. Now, the problem is that you push so many people into taking the standard deduction anyway that the narcotic of having that deduction is no longer there. They're just going to take the standard exemption. So an economist at Zillow did this wonderful analysis breaking it down county by county to see how many people would now be taking the standard deduction under the new bill. And it jumps way, way up. In all the counties around Chicago, Cook County, and the Keller counties, a majority are already taking the exemption, but it would jump way up to over 70%. So you're now going to be looking at paying full freight on that property tax bill, whereas in the past you effectively got a deduction. If you're in the 35% bracket, for example, you would have reduced your real after-tax property tax bill by 35%. Well, that will be gone for many people. And it's worse for people at the higher end. If you have a larger mortgage that's beyond that cap, a larger property tax bill, you're going to be capped out, and even if you itemize, you're not going to be able to deduct that. And the same kind of analysis applies to the mortgage interest deduction. And the Senate proposal would leave that intact, but the House would cap it at mortgages of $500,000. But it's that same problem with the standard exemption where you're not going to be taking that anyway because you're going to be taking the standard exemption.
So if you have a big compound like Amy, and you're talking about like a high six-figure, low seven-figure home, I mean, and that's just one of her homes.
Yeah, right.
Then you're talking about with what you just described, basically an increase in your overall tax burden, federal tax burden specifically, but that's overall, maybe $5, $6, $7 a year.
I would say probably more than that for a very high-end home. I took a quick look. It's about 15-20% of the homes in our area around Chicago are priced over $750,000. So there's a lot of homes like that. Let's say you got I ran the numbers on a married couple makes $120,000 each. They're in the 35% bracket. They have an $800,000 house. They're probably paying 2.5% at least for property taxes, $20,000 a year.
Right.
Well, under the Senate bill, their after-tax property bill would increase from $12,000 to $19,000 per year, or $583 dollars per month.
Okay.
That's going to be pretty annoying to them, given that they're already pretty upset about property taxes, I'm sure.
Yeah, so that's $7,000.
Yeah, but anything we could do to stop this?
Well.
How do you stop Congress? I mean, I think they're moving ahead like a freight train to try to get something passed, and I don't think they've thought it through very well. Frankly, I'm not a huge fan of the Republicans in Congress, and I haven't gotten my arms around the entirety of this bill. There's good and bad in it, but the unintended consequences on blue states, and clearly the intention was to whack high income tax, high tax blue states. Unfortunately, that includes us. So me, you, your listeners are going to pay a price here for.
Well, right. But so the question, obviously is, well, wait a second. So this plan is being bandied about now. We've been paying the highest property tax in the nation for some time. We have the highest combined state and local tax burden in the nation prior to any changes in the federal tax code. So should our ire be focused, as is like the Realtors Association and Democrats, of course, at Republicans in Congress, or should it be at Chicago Democrats who control Illinois?
Obviously, it's primarily the problem that we got into this property tax mess in the first place. And there's a very good case to be made that these deductions shouldn't have been there in the first place, the mortgage interest deduction and the property tax deduction. Now, the markets don't like dislocations, and this is a mighty big dislocation, as economists charitably call it. So we're really jumping out of the hot water pretty fast here, and that will have a drastic effect on property prices. That's the sole point that I'm making. Make your judgment about the overall value of the bill otherwise, but I'm just pointing out the narrow issue of what effect it's going to have on property taxes and how it will really aggravate our property tax situation. Maybe that's a good thing.
And maybe it'll stoke the revolt. Yeah.
What will happen come tax time? Because I know a lot of homeowners are excited to file their tax returns because of the interest rate they pay on their mortgages. How is that going to be affected?
Well, that the mortgage interest rate, like I say, would be entirely eliminated under the Senate bill and would be capped for mortgages of $500,000 under the House bill. So it's the same issue there. That's being taken away to a large extent by all these people jumping into the standard deduction. So you're going to look at your tax bill and you say, hey, I'm no longer really getting any subsidy, any help on my mortgage interest. Mm-hmm. So the real after-tax cost of homeownership has gone up significantly for me.
And you suggest that National Associated Realtors is saying that the GOP tax plan would reduce home prices nationally by 10%. You're saying that would be a multiple in Illinois because of our already confiscatory property tax burdens. That's
right. The high property tax places like us would be hit especially hard. The exception that there are some counties in Cook County, in Illinois, where very few people itemize. They all take the standard deduction anyway, so they'll get the good effect of this standard deduction. It'll double for them, but their home prices already reflect the fact that they're not deducting property taxes and the mortgage interest deduction. So they might be okay, Iroquois County, Winnebago County, places like that. But all around Chicago, you're going to see a pretty big hit.
I'm glad Amy can afford it. He is Mark Glennon, founder of WirePoints.com. The piece, pending federal tax changes would lower Illinois home values and deepen property tax rage at WirePoints.com. Mark, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Very good. Take care.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.